Hey, Byron Johnson here with Coordinated Power. Just going to give you a quick rundown of something really cool that we're building. It's called Coordinated Power Designer. Kind of the idea is this is a web and mobile app where we're going to collect all the information that goes into a typical substation design. So traditionally, if you're going to design your substation, you're going to go back and look at a previous job and pull a lot of manual data and dig some information out of one spec and some information out of a drawing. And as you make single line diagrams, breaker specs, transformer specs, control building specs, and structures and equipment specs, and basically everything you do, you duplicate that information. So you're going back later and trying to find information in an email, maybe for source impedance. Hopefully you stored it in the right place in your system. Get source impedance so you can do fault calculations, TCC curves. So we're going to build all of that into one central location, right? And what this kind of looks like here is this is kind of drilling into a project. This is one that I kind of just made as a demo, new substation in Clayton, which is where I live. You add all your equipment, so you can drill into this equipment and you'll get like a data import screen. And not a data import, data entry screen. It's like a form with drop downs and inputs. And you can fill in as much as and it really only gets entered once, right? You're not going to enter the voltage on your transformer spec. It's going to pull from the database of the actual project details. Up here, there's more to this form. So you might have a form that looks like this where you enter in primary voltage, secondary voltage, just miscellaneous things about this station in this project. And then from then on, all your other specs are going to pull from that central location. It's going to work the same kind of across the board. All the information goes into the database, and then we'll generate specs directly from the database. It'll be automated. It pulls all the information relevant to, say, a control building spec, pulls it in directly from the data entry screen, has all of the front matter. We've got a pipeline builder that, let's say it goes through, let's say you're doing an RUS project, it'll pull the RUS documents, fill in the blanks for the values out of the database that you need, add that to the front, pull the control building specification for workmanship specifications and things that aren't specific to the data sheet, and then append the data sheet to the end of it. You can review and add your vendors in here, and we'll have our default vendor selection entered. So kind of the concept is, everything's in the database. It's all vectorized into the database that way, so the data is not duplicated and re-entered. And really, if you know what you want, you can issue a transformer spec in a day. When you're kicking off a new project, a lot of times, transformers are long lead, especially high voltage breakers. They're very long lead items. So you don't want to get into a queue, kind of in the traditional process where you got to assemble a project team and then, have a kickoff meeting. Then, you wait a little bit longer, pull relevant drawings, pull all your stuff. I mean, at some level, you've got to go through your process of locating the right data. But this is very streamlined in the case of, if you know what you want, kind of what we're going to brand along with this is build with us. So we'll be your engineer of record, and we'll still fill in the gaps and own the design. But if you know what you want, you can build with us, and you don't have to wait for us to go in and enter all the data. You can start building literally with us. And realistically, if you know what you want for certain, equipment to get things started, I mean, you can release it in a day. You fill out the data sheet, review it, and there's a single button in there to generate the whole bid package, and you can even send it to bidders from the platform. So it's all integrated, streamlined, just because the power industry is exploding right now. We need to grow and be much more efficient and use modern technology to really streamline what can be streamlined, and not be duplicating information. Another key thing about this is it makes it very easy to review the whole system programmatically when you've got it all vectorized in a database like this. And when I say vectorized, I mean the data is broken up individually, not duplicated, stored in tables that make sense. It's organized. And then we can do things like have AI go in and do a full review. We can have a checklist to have it go through, make sure all of the arresters line up across all of the different equipment you've specified. Maybe you have other criteria that we put in a checklist to have AI go through and review the database against the checklist. And it's just very easy to have automated reviews. To some extent, nothing replaces a human review. And we'll, at Coordinated Power, we'll be the humans doing the review and owning the design all the way through. But, to get extra eyes on a system like this with AI, that can access this data and go through it is really a new thing. So let me go back. We're building a lot more into this platform too. It kind of makes sense that, once you got all the data in here, you can really just keep going. Here's kind of what we're building in with this, right? So you've got a diagram builder where you can put generators, relays, circuit breakers in a one-line diagram builder, much like other softwares that we all know and use. You can go through and do power flow studies, run a short circuit analysis directly in it, right? Because the source impedance it just pulls directly from either the model if you program it in, or you can select it from the database where you've already entered it. Run arc flash study cases, coordination studies. If the database knows all of your relays, we're going to run the coordination study. It pulls all the curves, pulls some damage curves for your transformers, and runs all this programmatically. So you export that. We got a tab for harmonics. That's not fully developed yet. And then we got a time series. Time series is something similar to PSCAD that goes through and steps through small time scale increments and models the whole system. So really trying to build in a lot of that functionality and calculations directly around the data that's fully defined for your whole substation or whatever your system needs to be. Just a little bit more that we're adding here. We're going to add line routing in. Let's say you want to go to a map. You draw your poles on the map. We got a place where you can define some poles, and then pull live API data for the profile, and in the back end generate real sag and tension calculations. I can't tell if this properly loaded with the actual terrain elevations from the API, but again, we can do a lot with this. So we'll be adding in more automated features to this, AI capabilities and things like that. Because once the data is accessible and the process is defined for how you might want to build out where you want your line to run and how that gets entered in to be calculated, it's not a stretch to have an AI interface where it can get your information and run the calculations directly for you. So here's a section outlining kind of what our brainstorm a 10% project plan might look like. So we're going to work with AI to generate some conceptual ideas of what something might cost. So let's go through this. 230 kV to 115 kV substation. So here's another area where we're using AI already in the app. So this is already hooked up to live AIs. And if you put your description in here and start brainstorming, the AI will pull actual lead times for various equipment. And what it'll do is it will build you out a cost estimate for all the expected equipment in your project. Regardless of whether or not if it's in the database. This doesn't have to be in the database. It can just be in your prompt in question right here to the model. And we've given it under the hood some lead times and cost estimates for various equipment across the board for substation projects. and it'll make that cost estimate. It can generate a schedule for you, a high-level single-line diagram, and a written draft of a 10% project plan. So just to kind of get you started on what you're looking like for schedule and cost, you can really just brainstorm it right on the front end with this AI integration. So anyway, that's kind of what I've got to show for today. Again, it's called the Coordinated Power Designer platform, and we'll be really rolling this out to kind of build the idea of building with us as your consulting engineer. So looking forward to talking more. Just reach out and let me know who might be interested or wants to just brainstorm more stuff with us. Thanks.